Today what we're going to talk about is I'm going to walk you through multiple stories that teach you about how the system can impact your life. And I'm going to take an individual that's a client in Georgia that's new and walk you through her stories from buying to renovating to cleaning it up to renovating to financing to then the reselling with the agent. And then with that, I'm going to start to split off into other satellite stories of things that are going on with other properties. So you're going to get a really good mix of different events that are happening. We talk about all kinds of things that I interject in. What I want you to do is buckle up and get ready for the ride, because I'm going to take you on one today through lots of vortexes, or whatever you call them, through all kinds of paths and channels. And so you want to buckle up, get ready for the ride, because you're going to go on a nice ride today and see a lot about Into Our Worlds, Into the Estates LLC. I had a client that was in Atlanta, Georgia, that got on one of our first system introduction calls, and we walked her through the benefits of the system and what it brings to your front door, to your online conference call, to the network of people that are in the system. The benefits that you get from the estates tracking system and the estates community is that it's a worldwide community. So number one, you're dealing with people all over the world. The ideology behind it is we get on a conference call. Once you become a member and you sign up into the system to use the system, then you start to get on the chats. So what you do is you get on calls with us that are conference calls. We do anywhere from 8 to 12 conference calls a week. And so what you do, if I was to walk you through it, is I had a client who signed up to the system probably 4 or 5 months ago. She came in and said she'd been to many other different programs. She'd signed up for different things. Different people tell her to do this and that. And one of the things I did is that I explained to her the downside, the negative parts of what's in the world today when it comes to real estate. And that's normally how I pitch out to people, is I show you all the things that can go wrong. Because it's like I always said, even last week when I talked on this, if someone shows you a repair video and every part goes together easily and you can see it very clearly in your mind what it takes to get it to go together, you never really see what happens if it breaks down. Really what a repair video should do is show you all the things that can happen during that repair that can go wrong. So if you're fixing a Microsoft Surface Pro screen and you go to lift it up or get it away from the adhesiveness, it can crack the screen, or this can happen or that can happen. And a lot of times repair videos don't go into the downside. They show you a clean, perfect way to set your screen, as an example, or to repair a car, fix something, right? And what I do is I do something completely different to that. What we do is we go over all the negative things that can happen as well as the positive things that happen. So as an example, one of the things that happens is once you sign up to access the system and get the free education, we have you get on the meetup calls, and there are many meetup calls. When you get on the meetup calls, what happens is you get on a call where there are multiple other clients that are on the call as well too, and they're discussing their deals. What's really cool is if you walk through someone else's deal, so you see how they bought it, how they financed it, how the deal was worked, how they renovated it, what problems they came across. You walk through it even on how they list it, how they sell it. So what I'm going to do today is take you through a person who recently signed up in the system and kind of walk you through what happened to them. So they got on one of my calls, they heard me talk about what I say the downside, all the things that can go wrong, and the first thing they say is, wow, this is the first time someone has told me where the pitfalls are. When I sell the downside, the other thing that does is it helps people to say, I can believe what this guy is telling me because I'm telling you the good and the bad, and that's extremely critical. Then when they get on the calls, so they sign up into the system and they get on the calls, then they start hearing others talk about their experiences. As an example, last night was Monday night. We have a call at 9 p.m. At this time, we get a hold of everyone, client calls in, and then they start discussing their deals. Last night, I had people that discussed things that were going wrong on their deals. One gentleman was dealing with the court system and how the woman would not get out of the house, and she committed insurance fraud by claiming an insurance claim on a home that she did not own any longer, that she was trying to use the court system to slow her up in the eviction. And during that time, my client filed another action against her to try to raise her up, in which case an attorney responded. When that attorney responded, that allowed us to start to engage in communications, and it sprung into this whole other issue. So normally if you thought, oh, I'm going to evict someone, you just simply go in and say, well, you file something in court, hire an attorney, they file it in court, you get eviction 28 days later and you're out. That isn't really how it happens at all, right? So he's going through the process of having an individual get served by an attorney and evicted by an attorney, and then seeing the way that that individual hires an attorney and they go through the process together, and how you can see someone who uses the law to stay in the home longer, and the way that they can, the other side's attorney can use that law to trip you up. And so as you walk through that good and bad scenarios, those good and bad scenarios, you start to see that an eviction isn't as easy as we think it is. This lady's been in this home for probably over a year. Part of it has been because of COVID, but she's filed that insurance claim during the time she doesn't own the home, and now my client is working other strategies to get her out of the home, which in this case is starting to work, right? And so as I walk them through that process on the call, everyone who's on the call, seasoned clients who have been in the system for many years and newbies that just started, right? And they're all hearing this eviction story. I have another client that's in Atlanta, Georgia, as an example. She signed up to the system. She immediately bought a home in the system within the first week, and she jumped right in. And then as she jumped right in, she started dealing with this property, and she found that what she thought was the case changed for her. And as what we did is we started to walk her through that process, and she'd be like, oh, this isn't what I expected. It's happening this way. And she'd see the deal fall down, and it was going to be a high risk deal. And then we would figure out a strategy, and then she would be lifted up again. And as that occurred, we would tell her different marketing strategies. So for instance, in this particular case, this property may have been better to do an owner carryback. And on the normal MLS, you can't really do an owner carryback as well. So she went out to Craigslist to market the property, and then she started getting responses. And as she got responses, then those responses showed her traffic, but she didn't get it renovated yet because the person that was there had still had his stuff inside. So as we started to go through this process, then she would see, for instance, this was in a large condominium tower. And then she found that the management had changed multiple times. And as she started to work with the manager of the condominium to get the access to the apartment to change the locks out, she realized how the management of the condominium worked. Then she saw them send her the fees for the HOA. And then when she moved furniture out, they charged her a fee. When she moved furniture in, they charged her a fee. And so they would charge her $150 every time she used or accessed the elevators for 4 hours or less. There were scheduling problems with the HOA, okay? And then they started billing her before she actually got the deed to the property. And so there were all of these things that started to happen that a book doesn't tell you about. The only way you hear them is actually going through them, right? And then as she's telling everyone on the call, or I'm talking to her on the call, she's explaining her issues with the 13-story building and the HOA and the fees charged and when they charged them and how they charged them. And everyone on the call is hearing her experience. So they see her come into the system and start with nothing, and then see her invest in a product, and then start to see her go through, okay, well, how am I going to get at this? I got to get a hold of the bank. I got to bring the loan current, or whatever the situation is there, pay a bank off, right? Or get a lender to do renovations. So she starts to walk through this process, and she learns that the HOA is really hard, and that extends her time out. So it's taking longer for her to get the project done, because she then finds out that she has to schedule the building at a certain time and talk to the manager and get approval before and notice them up 7 days in advance when she's going to list. And so this rose-colored glasses of hers, where I can sit back in my chair and relax and pay some money and buy a house and flip it and make money, she starts to learn how it is. So she goes into the apartment, she finally gets the locks changed, and then she finds out that the place is a mess. So then she has to hire crews, and she goes through all of these different people who tell her they're going to charge her more money, and their scheduling, and how it doesn't happen as quickly as she wants. She then learns it's probably faster for her to get a couple of her nephews and her to trash this house out. And then she rents a U-Haul. And so then she learns the cost of, hey, should I have a U-Haul, or would it be better to have a dump bed trailer? And as she goes through that process, each week as she gets on the call, everyone's hearing her story, right? And so she goes in and she takes pictures of the condominium, and it's an entire wreck. I mean, I had a house that I did this last week where we walked into this place, and there were Frappuccino glasses everywhere on the counter. There were animals in the thing that had pooped all over the floor. The cat litter box was no longer even filled with cat litter. It was filled with poop. And the cat would dig through the poop to poop. And that's just disgusting, right? And we walked into the bedroom, and there was a bed in the house, and there was trash up past the bed and a path to walk through to get to the bed. We hauled out probably 142-gallon bags of junk and stuff out of that apartment. I mean, we found keys to cars that she left and probably lost as she went through this process of building this trash into her apartment. We saw her hoard just massive. We walked into the bathroom and looked at the toilet, and the toilet was just caked with scum and gross stuff. And it was just ridiculous and all over. The toilet was so bad, we ripped it out and put a new one in, just because to clean it would have been just so ridiculous it wouldn't have been funny. And the trash can next to it was just piled up with toilet paper rolls and tampons, and you can just imagine that. And then it had cans of hairspray that were sitting on the floor stacked, and there was a path into the bathroom, and this thing was just overflowing with junk and all kinds of stuff. The sink, the water had been shut off for probably years, and the sink was just coated with all kinds of grime and grit, and the counter was just unheard of, right? And the shower was just a wreck, right? And so you walk in this house, and so roughly, 142-gallon trash cans. We went to we emptied out a portion of the house. And the first time we emptied it out, we took a 20-foot by 7-foot wide trailer, 8 feet tall, and we packed it to the gills. And we pulled onto the scales of the weight station at the landfill, and my vehicle weighed about 10,250 pounds, and this was 13,250 pounds. So there was literally 3,000 pounds of pure junk, right? And then we went back for a second trip, and that time it was 3,600 pounds of junk. And this wasn't furniture. She had very little furniture, a box spring, a mattress, this kind of stuff. And that house reeked of smell, just poop and urine and all this stuff in the kitchen. And she had alcohol that was just loaded up in the fridge, and just this woman, her life was a wreck, obviously, and she lived a completely different life outside in the world. And the guy that was trashing out that house, he would just swear at her multiple times as he cleaned this house out. It took us 47 hours for him and probably 25 for me to clean this house out. And yeah, I do it myself physically, right? Because when I go in and I physically do it myself, I feel that pain, right? And so as I do that and I work through it, then I can tell everyone on the call, you would not believe the mess we walked into. And then the neighbor came up and he basically, here we were cleaning out this house and we found this hot water heater and the bottom of the core was about ready to rust out and break and fall into his entire apartment below. Right? And he comes out because we're working at 11 o'clock at night to wrap up to get to a hotel, and he starts ranting because we're supposed to be out by 10 o'clock because that's what the HOA says. And then he starts pacing, and both of the neighbors have a problem, and we load up all the poop into the trailer and go to the dump at 4:30, get there just in time to dump everything to come home and open the doors when the trailer's cleared out and all the poop's along the edge and it falls to the ground. And the neighbor comes out and complains because there's poop all over the sidewalk, right? And the trailer reeks of smell, and the condo for 3 days, just everything reeked, right? And the guy that was with me just swore all the time about how this was such a terrible thing and how we felt sorry about this woman who had family, who said that the family texted me and said, are you going to evict her out of this apartment? And I'm a colonel in the Air Force or whatever, the military. We should have given her more time. And then I walked into this house and I saw the mess she lived in, and I thought, my goodness, how could you have a sister who lived in this type of an environment and you yourself didn't even come and help her out and pull her out of the mess she was in, right? And so these are the stories that come right at your face live. So that was my story right in the... So basically what you have is this junk that we got, 6,000 pounds of junk that took us 47 hours plus 25 hours, so roughly 75 hours of time, 80 hours of time, to get 6,000 pounds of junk out of an 800 square foot condominium. How could you possibly have 6,000 plus pounds of junk in an 800 square foot condominium, right? And so going back to the client in Georgia, she's going through that HOA problem, right? So she goes in and she snaps pictures and she gets on a call and she says, this thing's so dirty. And she told us that story 2 months ago on the call. And then I said, well, I got a story that beats yours. Your little condominium in Georgia doesn't have anything on my condominium in North Carolina, right? And so we're going to show all of y'all the pictures and the junk that's coming out of my condo compared to yours. And you were all worried about it and how terrible this condo was, and you could clean your toilet and your tile to get it back to normal, where mine was so terrible you couldn't. And so she cleaned her bathroom, and we saw the pictures of it later on. Well, mine, you wouldn't have seen the bathroom clean because we ripped that toilet out of there and that sink out of there and the mirror out of there and put in a brand new white quartz countertop with a new inset based cabinet and an elongated toilet that's brand new. And now we replaced the 40-gallon water heater. And by the way, when I went to the store in Lowe's to get the water heater, I couldn't find a 40-gallon water heater. And this had a little closet in it that was 3 foot high because the air conditioning was on top and the closet was below. And we had to get the PEX fittings, the right kind. I had to go to the store 3 times, right? And I had to get the right hot water heater, and I couldn't find it in Lowe's. So I had to go to the guy in Lowe's, and he had to search all over, and it said there was one on hand, and he finally found it on some aisle that was 50 rows down. And then I had to go get that water heater in the toilet. And it's these things that you hear here, problems that occur. All of these things take time, and it's back and forth 18 minutes to a Lowe's. It's using the discount coupon that you can get on cheaplowes.net, and the fact that you can have a Lowe's account that you have them scan. So every time I go up to the register, I have them scan my debit card on the back because it has my Lowe's code, and once they do that, it logs it in so that the back-end accounting team sees everything I'm buying. And then I snap a picture of the receipt after I write the address on it and what the stuff is, and snap a picture so that it goes up into the accounting team. And then I have a coupon that I use every time that gets me 10% off. So I scan my debit card, then I hand them the coupon, then they ring everything up, and then there's always something you forget. You got to go back to the store to get it. And then if you buy tools and soda pop, the accounting team comes back and tells you you can't charge for the soda pop and the tools because your equity share partners are not going to pay to feed you, right? And the tool you bought is on you, not on them, right? And so as you go through this process, then you check out and you get all that information loaded up to accounting, and they put it in your master closing document, which is an equity share document. And then they go in there and they check to see, did you get your discount like you're supposed to? Did you scan the code? Did you buy the right materials? And then what happens is I bought all those materials and I sent in my receipt to accounting. And as I sent in my receipt to accounting, then I set up a camera system inside the house. And the camera system had a staging area, because we designate a staging area, which happened to be the first room that we moved all the junk and everything that was in that room out, ripped the carpet out, the pad out, and then I set up the camera system. So I brought all the material from Lowe's into the house and then set it into the material staging area. And then that way the people who are monitoring the cameras 24/7 see the materials come in, they see the invoice go into accounting. Now they can monitor it to say, there's the materials, there's the invoice, check, right? Then she can see me take that cabinet and install it into the bathroom, and that toilet and install it into the bathroom, and that water heater install it into the bathroom. They can monitor what's coming out of there, how long it's taking us. They're tracking all of our times to see exactly what we're doing on that project. This is what the team does, right? So they have 24/7 camera monitoring. They're monitoring your material. They're checking your accounting. They're tracking your times. They're seeing when you change the door lock. Once the cameras are up, who's going, who's coming. Last night I went to another house and I installed a quick set lock that can be remotely controlled by Bluetooth or Wi-Fi. We can track everyone that comes in and out of the house, right? And I went last night to this house and I went into a closet and I found a closet that had a plug in it. So what I did is I had a coded lock that I put on that closet, because if we Airbnb that property, that's where all our storage goes, our sheets and all our changes of things, right? And so as that lock is put on there, that's coded with the electrical socket in that closet, that's perfect, because then I can go in and set my cable modem up, I can set my camera base station up, and my router up, all in that closet on a shelf, and plug it in, and it's locked and no one can get it. So then that way when the contractors come in and out, they can't steal that stuff or shut it down or mess with it, or someone doesn't know what they're doing. All those things are taken care of, right? So now last night I went into this one house, this other condo we bought, and I changed to a keypad to where now you can get in by a code. And then I had a manual key, right? So I went out and I put a piece of tape around that key and then wrote the address to the property, and this is the closet, and that key goes in, one key goes into the lockbox that's on the house. In the event that the keypad doesn't work, they can get in manually. And then that key's also put in a special place in our car, so we have all the keys that are in the same area with the right tags on them, showing what those keys are, right? And so now I have a closet that protects my camera monitoring system and all my modem and all that. And then the other thing we do in our houses is that we set the same username in every house with the same password in every house. That way everywhere I go, when I'm on my phone and my tablet, the minute I hit the house, it immediately logs into the Wi-Fi that's there, and I have immediate speed, right? We have our material staging area where now people can't steal stuff, and we can see when it's installed, and we can see when they take something back or when they bring something back, because it's tracked by the accounting system, right? And so these types of conversations are being had on the calls. Here's how you do this. This is why you do that. Here's the problems we had over here. This went well, this was bad. Like last night when I got on the call at 9 o'clock, I was in the middle of changing a lock. So everyone on the call, I had my speaker that was there that I could listen to, because I use a Jabra 710, which allows me to communicate and on a speakerphone with a very dialed mic, so that I could set my phone down and then let those who are in the room working with me hear the call as well too, as we're all working together, right? And so it goes down to the kind of speakers I use, the kind of headset I use, or those are all discussions that everyone can have. How did that lock? Like for instance, one guy was changing the lock on the front door, I was changing the lock on the closet, and we had a competition to see who could beat each other on getting that lock installed, right? And so these are the type of things that you learn in the system as you go through it. And there's all of these technicalities that some guru's never going to tell you about, because what they're trying to do is sell you some program where they want you to charge you money to watch their videos and tapes, or they want you to learn about this king of rehab and this queen of whatever, right? And all that stuff. Where in our business, in our system, what we do is we amalgamate you into the community, and you get on the call and you hear about these terrible stories and great stories. Last night, the condo I walked into, it was actually one where we bought it and took it over from a guy that was renting it, and the people, when they left it clean. The carpets were shampooed, the windows were clean, the counters were wiped down. And I thought, wow, I've never been in this house in quite some time where someone hands me over a property that's really nice and clean, because usually when I get them, they're trashed like the ones we talked about, right? So everyone heard that on the call. And so you start to see all these paradigms of what people are going through. And as you get on those nightly calls, you hear the stories. And last night I probably had 5 to 10 clients who went through. One of them was talking about what happened on the resale of the home, and another one was talking about the eviction of a client, and another one was talking about how she was dealing with a real estate agent, right? So if we go back to the story of Georgia, she went in and she dealt with that condominium. She trashed that house out. So she had a nephew do a rent-a-truck, and with U-Haul, right? And so then she carried everything down within 4 hours and got rid of all the junk, and then had to go in and clean the house. I remember when she first talked to me, I want to go into real estate investing so I can make money in the easy life and kick back at the beach, right? And she starts to learn, she says, this is tiring. And she says, my boyfriend told me that I had to sit it out for a day because I was wiped out, right? And so now she's in the middle of it, because she said, I interviewed all these people, and at the end of the day, they'd take too long, cost too much, and I could just go do it myself faster, right? Or maybe she found that it was quicker to hire someone because they were right there and they could get it done on the spot. I checked into a hotel the other day, and the lady was sitting there and she had only booked 12 rooms. One of her maids called in, and when she called in, she said, hey, do we got to go to work tomorrow? So I gave her, when I heard that, I gave her my number, and I said, have them call me if they need to work tomorrow, because I can hand them extra work, right? So then I could get the maid from the hotel that's right in the locale where I'm at to go clean out the house for me, right? And so as you get on these calls and you listen to the stories of the individuals, you start to really see the dynamics of a buyer and getting the house renovated, and a person who's working to get a hold of people at the door, or an attorney who's evicting people. And all these stories start to come out, and you're hearing them from seasoned clients. You got people like me that are, or like other people in the system who have 20 homes on the books that they're working through, right? And so your stories on a nightly basis as you get on these calls, they're different, and they're broad, and they're amongst all kinds of things. The other night we were talking about Airbnb arbitrage and the new eviction rules, and last night we were talking about the things I told you about. And so you follow this person through a Georgia condominium, and then you see her get everything cleaned up, and then she sends pictures in and says, hey, look at what I did, and look at how this place turned out. And then, I got to install this microwave, and well, do I need an electrician to do it? No, they're going to charge you too much. If you get the instructions out, watch a YouTube video, your nephews can have it done in an hour, right? And so there's just all of these processes that in the system you go through, that you live vicariously through everyone. One's starting a project, one's negotiating a deal, one's financing it, one's renovating it. All of them are dealing with all kinds of problems, and others are dealing with great successes. And then you see the whole project come to fruition, where now this woman is staging the house. So she gets it all staged, and we fully furnish our properties. So she went out and she picked the couches, and she got through the whole process of getting it staged right. And then once it's staged with not too much furniture in it, but just enough, right? And you got to cater to the view of the downtown area of Atlanta, Georgia, right? And there's all these things going on. And then she finally gets the last bits of furniture in. And now we talk to the real estate agent, and the real estate agent goes in and says, this is what the commissions will be. And they put 4% and 3% initially, and we catch that. And then she goes through and she sees it. And then we get on the phone with the real estate agent, and she and I are talking to the agent, and there's a ton of stuff that she's learning as I have this phone call with this real estate agent. And then afterwards I call her back and say, what did you learn? And she's like, man, I'm constantly learning just a ton of stuff that I never knew that I'm learning, that are bringing me into my game, right? And as she's going through this process, she's talking to her boyfriend or her husband or kids, and she sees how it impacts their lives and how it impacts her work life. And as she goes through this project, she's evaluating if this is a business that she really wants to be in, or maybe she doesn't like this. I was on the call with one of my acquisition assistants yesterday, and he actually is running the sale of several properties, and he's also helping to buy properties. And he said, you know what, he goes, I hate selling them and I love buying them. And the reason why is because if I'm selling them, I'm dealing with all these real estate agents and their questions that are idiotic, as he calls it, right? Or that are, just ridiculous or redundant. And he's like, why couldn't they have found that answer out himself? And you got to say, well, it's your product. You're selling it. You got to find the information. So, you need to have a template of everything laid out, of all the questions that someone could possibly ask. And, you got to find out where's your water or sewer, if it's septic or well. And if it's a piece of land, you might need to pick up a phone and call a neighbor to see what they tell you. In this particular case, the property is on the intercoastal waterway. So has that lot flooded, or is their house flooded? Is there well water there? Is there septic there? What are the side and rear setbacks? Is there a homeowners association? What do they require? What do they not require? Can we put a sign on the lot? Can we not put a sign on the lot? What does the HOA say? Do they have addendums to their CC&Rs that they did not record, so you don't see what really you're supposed to do and not do, right? And so as he's talking through his property, he says, I hate selling things because it's way too much, but I really like buying them because it's the thrill of the catch, right? And then as we discuss, and then he starts to walk through in his mind about why these issues are not so good. And then he realizes that maybe after he gets a list and everything's there and he's set up to where when a phone call comes in, it will create a different event, because he's learning how to buy and sell real estate, right? He's going to eventually get into his lane and find out what makes him happy or turns him on or helps him to get successful, right? Or what really works for him and his family's dynamic. He used to work at a bank, and now he's working in real estate. And so some days he may be gone for 16 hours, and other days he may be able to spend the whole day with his son, right? And I think that's the beauty of the system and the people in the system. And everything that the dynamic, you're chatting with people, you're getting on the calls, you're texting with them, you're dealing with the attorneys and real estate agents and acquisition assistants and people who are negotiating for you, and lenders and buyers and contractors and HOAs. And all of these things create that experience for you really in renovation. I have a guy that I follow that tracks economic environments, and last night on the call I said, did you guys get what that said, what's happening in Dallas and Houston and San Antonio, and where those markets are headed, and Boise, Idaho, and Salt Lake City, and Seattle, Washington. And we have an economist that we watch that basically lays these different economic things out. And so as we were on the call last night, we said, how is the economy going to affect our market? How should we be positioning based on where the market is at and where it's headed? And then we discussed, okay, our competition is doing this, we need to be doing this, right? And so the beautiful thing about the system is that you follow this woman in Georgia who's new through all of these processes, right? And you're following someone like me who's extremely experienced, and you're seeing those processes. And then you're seeing the protocols followed and how to do it and how not to do it. And like I walked you through the debit card at Lowe's and how I laid that out, right? And for me, I can go work on a project. Like yesterday, I looked at 3 homes. We put for sale signs in 2 of them. We talked to the neighbors and got a 3rd one up as well too, right? And so as I go through each one of those homes, for me, I don't need a coach or a teacher or a trainer or a mentor, because that's what I do for you guys. But through my stories, you can vicariously live. And the way I teach you is I don't tell you and then have you go do it. I go do it, have you watch me several times. And as you see me go through the processes and you see me hit the things that are the downside and the upside and the good and the bad, like I had a bad attorney or messed up an eviction, and now I got to give stuff back to an owner that I got to go talk to today that I should have never had to give back, right? Because he messed up his legal process and he was not doing his job, right? And so what I do is I let my clients learn through me. So if I'm on the call and they're seeing what I'm doing, how I'm buying, how I'm scaling, how I'm managing things, then as they see me do it several times, one who's a professional, extremely skilled in the marketplace, then they can watch me do it, and then as they start to learn, then they can segue in and start to do it and pick it up and take it over until eventually they're a professional in that industry. And the quicker I can get them taught and trained and mentored, because you see, in our program, in our system, what we do is we do a lot of equity shares. So if I can go in and show you how to run your project and get you to the point where eventually you can do it, then as I build your brain and you become someone great, then you'll start knocking down deals and making more money than you could have had you done it yourself, because it's the synergy of the whole and the system and everyone around. And the more effective you learn from me and you do these things and you dive into these processes, the more you do that, then you learn and you eventually take it over. And pretty soon I can have a client, like a Georgia client, who starts out as a newbie that starts to elevate in their position to where they make money. And as they do, then I apply more principles and they make more money. And then as they get to the point where they're very good at what they do, now we have a business relationship where we can synergize. And because of what they brought to the table and what I brought to the table with my 36 plus years of experience and their new experience, or their so-so experience, or their medium experience, or their high rank level experience, I can interject into them what it is they need to learn. And as they start to take it over, then I can start to create spheres or worlds of team members who are extremely valuable and are extremely successful. And as they grow, then the company grows, and together we grow. And I have clients who have had long-term relationships for me with years, and other clients that don't last and they quit and they go another way, and everyone sees that too, right? And so that's the beauty of the ecosystem of the estates community and the estates tracking and the world that evolves around everything that really is a part of real estate. And that's the business we're in. And you get to eat it up whole, swallow it whole, and let it come into your life. I have a client right now who's went out and started working 16-hour days and charging through all of this work and business and the thrill of the catch and running everything, where she missed 4th of July with her family, and she started to see her family life break down because she got too involved and she went over the top. And then as she went over the top, she then saw what it was doing to her family, and then she pulled back too far, and now she's going the other direction. And so she's learning how to balance her life dealing in the real estate industry, which can be extremely addictive and also can be all consuming, right? And so she's got to go through that family balance and get it right in order to bring it back to where it makes sense. And so the nice thing about this system is you join this ecosystem, and you know what's okay if you join it and you come into the group and the team and you start to use the system to your benefit, only to find out this isn't you. And that's the beautiful thing of the system. If it's not you, get out of the system and go do something in your life that makes you happy, right? Because in this system, we are in the real world. We're not in some trumped up world out there of some guru that's selling you on a program. You are live and in action. We have very few people that are new in our system, and the majority of them are all into deals. So there's very few that aren't into deals, because when you get in deals, that's how you learn. Don't spend $10,000 to $80,000 on an educational program. Put that first 10 to 80 grand into your first deal. You're paying $100 a month for a bunch of free education. If you spend $100 a month in our system, or whatever the monthly fee ends up being, which is what it is right now, in case you're watching this video later, if you spend $100 a month and you do it for 12 months, that's $1,200. If you did it for 4 years, you'd be $4,800. And the education you'd get would be passed out of a Harvard education, because they're not going to teach you what I know in real estate. It's hands-on, baby. It's right here. You're at it, you're doing it, you're seeing it, you're feeling it. It becomes a part of you and your whole life structure. And when you see that, then you can make a decision to say, you know what? That's not for me. In fact, what I tell my clients is, I'm trying to get rid of as many of you as I can. And why would I say that? Because at the end of the day, I don't want a partner who's partially in or half in or a quarter in. What I'm looking for is the people that I can teach, train, coach, and mentor and deploy my time into, that are going to go the distance and create a longevity, because that's then the value of my time starts to pay me back, because I literally spend thousands of hours with my clients, right? And so I'd rather have you come in and hate me or not like the system or not like the business and kick on out of here, because the more of you I can get rid of that are not cut out for this, or it's not cut out for you, the better it is for both of us, because then you can get in, find out if it works, and then move on if it's not. And then there's those other clients which, once I invest my time in them and they invest their time in me and we learn together, then they become extremely powerful, because what they do is they start to learn and they become extremely successful and they're making money. I mean, like the house I walked in yesterday, it's got a $150,000 margin on it. I spent about 50, 60 grand purchasing it, and this deal will make me gross 150 grand, if not more. And so there's these types of environments, and if that was an equity share and you did it with the lender, because we pay equities to our lenders if it's a great deal, the lender may get 20% of the equity and you may get 40% of the equity, and the estates will get 40% of the equity, or it could be a 50-50 deal or some other type of deal, right? But the thing about this is that money that you make starts to show you the value. And in our system, you can do one or two occasionally, that's fine. But what we're really looking for is people who want to get in and be passionate about real estate and love it and eat it up, and it becomes a part of them and their family and their whole being, to the point where they really just are real estate junkies, right? With balance though, right? And so at the end of the day, they come in, they take down this property, they take down one, and they start out as that one house in Georgia, and they get up to where they're doing, 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 a year, right? And they're making money, and we're making money, and everyone's happy and selling off into the sunset, right? As you would think. But that's kind of the thing that you're getting with the system, with the worldwide estates community. My goal is to build into all 234 countries and territories This is a worldwide event. My goal is to be able to someday buy a property sitting at my home in North Carolina, in the Virgin Islands, or in Mexico, or in China, or wherever it is I'm buying it, whatever the rules or the laws are. We are a worldwide community. And the goal is to get to every single piece of property and real estate on the globe, and to track it, and to have people all over the world who are communicating with each other about real estate. That's where the Estates Real Estate Group is headed. This is Craig Booksby with the Estates Real Estate Group, the Estates LLC, signing off. Everyone have a blessed day.